Welcome back, friends, to another weekly video. So we've been talking recently about growth, and I've been thinking to myself, how much do I really want to say here on YouTube? And I've decided I'm going all the way, because in this video, I'm going to be telling you what I really think about growth. In my previous videos, I gave you 5 key characteristics of growth. Growth exists, growth continues forever, growth is exponential, growth rates decrease over time, and growth occurs with constant acceleration. Now I want to spend some time talking about the first one. Growth exists. Now we've already talked about what this means. This means you can look at economic activity and identify this phenomenon we call growth. And I know that sounds really simple, but there is a reason I call this out as a separate characteristic. When I say that growth exists, what I'm really saying here is that growth is a definable phenomenon that you can study, just like any other scholarly area. This is important because if you can study something, that means you can learn about it and use it for your benefit. Now, this is very different from how people typically think about growth. People normally think about growth as something random that happens in financial markets. Growth is not random. What I'm saying is this is something you can learn about and use in your business. An example I like to use is gravity. So Newton defined gravity roughly 300 years ago. Before then, people took gravity for granted. It was just something random that happened, that things would fall to the ground. Well, as soon as gravity was defined as a phenomenon, we could then use it in all sorts of practical applications. And today, it forms the basis of the physics behind all the machinery that we use. So just like gravity, growth is also a phenomenon we can define. Now, I want to stop and think for a second. What is growth? If you think about growth on a theoretical level, growth is the expansion of a system. And so you have some organized system that is increasing productivity, whether that's through increasing the size or just increasing the effectiveness. When you think about growth as an abstract concept, you realize that growth is all around us. You see growth in nature, you see it in plants and ecosystems, you see growth in our own bodies, you even see growth in non-living structures like crystals. I want to suggest that growth is a natural phenomenon that happens in all systems, and it is the same phenomenon you see happening in the business world. Now, I know this is a very radical idea. The way we teach knowledge today is in universities. And universities are structured in a very segmented way. So on a university campus, you have all of these different schools and they're in different buildings across the campus. You have physics in one building, biology in another building, and business in another building. And everybody is studying different things. Well, if what I am saying is true, then growth is the concept that cuts across all disciplines. The reason no one has studied growth in this way is that growth is difficult to measure. So let's talk about this. Let's imagine you were going to study growth in the human body. What is one way you could measure growth? One of the easiest ways you could do is measure height. But height isn't good enough because you could have 2 different people with the same height but radically different weight. So if you're describing growth, height isn't a good enough measurement. So let's use weight. Well, weight doesn't tell the whole story either, because you could have 2 people with the same weight, but different levels of intelligence and different levels of output. So if you had a pair of identical twins with the same height, the same weight, but one was a couch potato and one was a brain surgeon, you would need something more to describe the growth of these 2 people. So I hope you're starting to see that when you talk about studying the concept of growth, measurement has always been a difficult thing. But business has come up with the ultimate tool to measure growth: money. Money is the ultimate measuring stick because you can roll everything together, their height, their weight, their intelligence, and stick a value on it based on the impact they have on society. But money is also not enough because we all know you could have two businesses that are worth the same amount of money, but one business is growing and one business is shrinking. So you need to know a little bit more, and what you need to know is productivity. Productivity is the value created during a period compared against the assets used to create that value, or simply income over assets. What is even more powerful is that accounting has the ultimate tool to understand productivity, and it's called financial statements. When you think about the two parts of the productivity ratio, it is essentially your two financial statements, the income statement and the balance sheet. What is even cooler about this is financial statements incorporate the idea of time into this calculation, because the statements set out defined periods of time. And so accounting is the profession that has the tools to understand productivity and ultimately growth. So the reason why no one has really studied growth as a concept is because we haven't had the tools to understand it. Science doesn't have the tools to analyze growth. Business has the tools. And you have to understand, we live at a historic moment in time. Something exists today that has never existed before in the history of humanity. So for the first time, we have access to over 50 years of solid economic data. For the first time, we have accumulated enough data to really study this phenomenon of growth. And it is the same phenomenon that happens in all systems. Do you realize what I'm saying to you? Accountants, the financial statements that you hold in your hands are the keys to understanding the universe, and you don't even realize it. Now I want to hear from you. If you think growth is a phenomenon we can study, go ahead and leave your comments down below. And if you like this video, if you found it helpful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. The best way to supercharge a business is through accounting and corporate finance, and I release a new video every week, so come back and check out next week's video.